Greetings from Holland. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning here in Rotterdam, where we stayed last night. We got here via the Eurostar, and today I've got some interesting violin things in mind to do, but they're mostly over at The Hague, where I'll need to go by train from Rotterdam Central train station. It's about 18 minutes, but once we get there to The Hague, there's some really fascinating things to do and some violins to see if all goes to plan. So this is the hotel where we stayed last night here in Rotterdam. It's the Hilton Rotterdam. A pretty decent hotel. Before we go to The Hague though, we've got a couple of interesting things to check out here in Rotterdam. So join me as we go and discover Rotterdam and The Hague. But before we go over to The Hague, we've got a couple of interesting things to check out here in Rotterdam. Firstly, a statue by Picasso, so let's go and check that out. Over here we actually have the central station in Rotterdam, which is quite nicely lit up with all the Christmas lights and everything. Now, Rotterdam was quite heavily bombed by the Nazis during World War II. So it has a different vibe to a lot of other places in Holland. There's a dude walking by with a violin case. I wonder if there's a music academy here. Anyhow, it's a different vibe to other places in Holland. Like, we'll get a different vibe in The Hague, because basically the whole of Rotterdam was flattened during World War II, and they've rebuilt it in a very modern style. There are some traditional parts of Rotterdam still, but not that many compared with other towns and cities in Holland. So it's quite intriguing from that point of view. So here at the Centraal station, quite interesting piece of architecture, is where we'll catch the train to The Hague a bit later. The other thing that's amazing about Holland as well is they're really super cycling focused. They always have been, actually. I remember been coming to Holland several times throughout my life since I was a little kid, and they've always been like this on their bikes. They love to cycle, the Dutch. Got our first sight of a Dutch canal here, and over across the road a really interesting modern looking, what I think is a church called the Pauluskerk. Some other really interesting looking sculptures down here on the way down to the Sylvet, I think it's called, Picasso's carving, Picasso's statue. I think I've managed to find the Picasso statue, which is just outside a museum, in fact, and it is actually quite a large one, so let's go and check that out. This is maybe one of the more traditional buildings that did survive the German Blitz here. So here's the famous Picasso statue. which I think is called Sylvet. So just looking at this sign here, it looks like we're about 17 minutes walk from the Erasmus Brug, the Erasmus Bridge, or I think otherwise known as the Swan. So we'll just take a stroll down there to see that bridge and see the port, the sea. And after that, we'll come back up here towards the station to head over to The Hague. So we've made it to the Erasmus Bridge, which I understand the people of Rotterdam are very proud of, and understandably so, because it's very beautiful. It's a little bit foggy, so let's go and check out the sea. So it's the bridge that I guess connects the north and the south parts of the city of Rotterdam. So there's one part, and then across the bridge to the other part. So we've just arrived here at The Hague. It was a pretty straightforward train journey actually, about 18 or 20 minutes from Rotterdam Central on the intercity train, and I'm heading now to the first thing that I want to see here, which is a memorial plaque to Mozart on the Spuy 44 street. Now, Mozart came to the Netherlands as a child, and it was a fairly successful trip in that he was performing for the royals and so on, but it almost ended in tragedy when the young child Mozart got severely ill with typhoid, I think it was, and nearly actually died. Fortunately for us, he didn't, and we have his wonderful music that came after then. But it nearly could have ended for him here. As it happens, he recovered from that ordeal, but they've commemorated his time here in The Hague with a plaque, and we're going to go and check that out now. Okay, I think I've found the Mozart plaque. It's very easy to walk right past it. So here is the Spuy 44. This is the Spuy street here, and at number 44 is this Primark. So just follow the Primark round down the side of the Primark building, and then you'll find the Mozart plaque, which I actually walked right past it. Sure enough, it is here. There it is, the Mozart plaque. So I'm glad I managed to find that. I was almost about to give up. So, as I say, near the Primark here, you can find this plaque. commemorating the time that Mozart was in the city. And now, as I mentioned, it almost became his place of death here because he got really bad typhoid. And I think his sister was ill as well. But fortunately for us, fortunately for the Western classical tradition, he survived that ordeal, recovered. Mozart was ill a few times. I'm just reading in the biography, he even got bad toothache once when he was travelling in a coach and it was drafty and cold, but this was actually a much more severe illness. But we can be really thankful that he bounced back from that and went on to compose the amazing masterpieces that would follow that. But I think in the time in Holland he actually composed a symphony and a few works and was received well by the people here and even cared for, I believe, during the time he was ill. So next, what we're ultimately here for in The Hague is to visit the Kunstmuseum, because I've got an appointment there with the curator to view some examples of 18th century Dutch violins. But rather than get the tram there, I thought I'd make my way there on foot, because there are some really interesting art galleries and the like to check out along the way. So we're going to make our way to our end goal, the Kunstmuseum in The Hague, and check out some things along the way. We're at the Langeverhout, and I'm here on to the next thing on my list to do, which is to check out the Escher Museum. Now, I've always been fascinated by Escher. I came across his work in a book that was lying around at my house when I lived in France. I don't know how it ended up in my house, but there it was there, and just these fascinating, mind-bending drawings, a kind of mathematical, architectural type art, where stairs sort of disappear into each other. So I have very fond memories of Escher, and so I'm making a beeline for this museum as I edge closer and closer to the Kunstmuseum, where I'm going to see the creme de la creme, some Dutch violins. So on to the Escher Museum. So I've arrived here at the Peace Palace, which is my final stop before heading over to the Kunstmuseum to see the violins by the great 18th century Dutch luthiers. So here's a view of the Peace Palace in The Hague. Here you can see the ubiquitous symbol of The Hague, which is the stork. So this is the lead up to the Kunstmuseum, the museum where the violins are, and it's quite sort of spaced out. I feel like there are quite a lot of like diplomats around here, embassies, and just had the police block off the road while all these cars with blacked out windows went by. Quite interesting. So definitely kind of a more modern part of The Hague, and much more spread out with various different museums, and of course the main one, which is the Kunstmuseum. So in there we're going to see some violins by Cuypers, Jacobsen, and one other example that's gone out of my head right now. All three violins, if I do manage to get to all three, they're all 18th century examples. So there we can see the brown sign to the Kunstmuseum. We're about 3 minutes away. I think it's just over there, ahead there. So I was speaking for several months with a lady called Millie, but she had to go on unexpected leave, so then I was put in touch with somebody else. They weren't sure if they could honour the appointment I'd made with Millie to see the violins in the vault initially, but in the end they did honour it, although they changed the appointment time from 9:30 to 3 p.m. So super grateful to the staff of the museum, who I look forward to meeting shortly, who are going to let me view a couple of these violins. I don't know why they're not on display. I might ask them that. Actually, it would be nice, wouldn't it, if they had some of these fiddles on display? Then you wouldn't have to make special requests to see them in the vault. But you do sort of feel kind of privileged at the same time when you have an appointment to see a very special instrument. Now this is like a museon. I don't know why it's called museon omniversum. There's some kind of marine life thing. That there might actually be the Kunstmuseum museum over there. So we're about to find out. Now it's relatively easy to get to the Kunstmuseum from the train station. You just catch the tram number 17 from the central train station. But I've ended up like walking most of the way because I've had things to see in between, like the girl with the pearl earring, the Peace Palace, the Escher Museum, which was a real highlight. I'm a big fan of Escher. And but I might be getting that tram on the way back, so really I should be looking out for some tram lines somewhere near here. I can just hop on that tram, get back to Den Haag Central train station, and then back down to Rotterdam, about 20-minute train journey. So we've made it to the Kunstmuseum. I've got about an hour to spare, so I might actually have a little look around before I meet the chap who's going to show me the violins. Let's get in there. Child's violin. Small. Yeah. On the train from Rotterdam to Amsterdam, we were able to see the Dutch countryside and the amazing engineering of the dikes which served to keep the water levels under control in this country. Amsterdam is, as those who have visited the city will well know, a stunningly beautiful city, crisscrossed with canals, and also a very busy place on a Saturday afternoon. We stayed for 2 nights in Hotel Mai, a Chinese-themed hotel not far from Amsterdam Central Station. First on the list of things to do, we visited the Anne Frank house, which serves as a sobering reminder of the horrors of the Holocaust, and also caused me to pause and reflect on my own ancestors who had perished in the Shoah. After that though, on the very same street as the Anne Frank house, but some 20 minutes walk further along the street, as it is a very long street, was another spot of interest to violin lovers. We've made it to the house where the great Italian Baroque composer Pietro Antonio Locatelli lived. He moved to Holland from Italy because of the freedom he could enjoy here, and plus because he was also the music publishing centre of the world at the time, way ahead of other places. Unfortunately, my time of arriving here is already dark, after dark. It just happened that way. But let me show you the plaque in the house. And as we can see, Locatelli lived right next to this beautiful canal. It is, as it happens, the same street where the Anne Frank house is, but that's about 20 minutes walk from here, because it's a super long street. Here's the house again. See my link to the video on the life of Locatelli, where I discuss his fascinating life. including the time he spent in Holland. It's Sunday morning in Amsterdam and things are pretty quiet around here compared with Saturday night. Quite a sleepy town. It's 8:45 in the morning, and I've got one more Locatelli site that I want to see, and it's over at the Beginhof. I think that might be a half decent attempt at the pronunciation. The Beginhof, which is like a little medieval village. It's like enclosed within the centre of Amsterdam, and I think in the past it may have been surrounded by canals at one time. So in there you have the English Reformed Church, which is, I believe, where Locatelli had some work, and so they've honoured him there with a bust or a statue outside the English Reformed Church in the Beginhof. So we're going to head over there to see if we can find that. And it's so incredibly quiet down here compared to yesterday, Saturday. So, apart from these seagulls, which are making a bit of a racket. So, if you come to Amsterdam, it's definitely worth having a stroll around early Sunday morning, because it's so peaceful and quiet, which is not the norm. So we're arriving at the Beginhof. We're going to see if we can find the memorial to Locatelli. Do have to be a little bit quiet because there are local residents, but okay. Looks like it's not open until 10. So I may have to go and grab a coffee and come back. 45 minutes later, it looks like they've opened the door now, a little early, so let's go and have a look around. Welcome to the Beginhof. Here's the English Reformed Church, so the Locatelli Memorial, in theory, here it is. Here's our dude, Locatelli. Italian Baroque composer and violin virtuoso, lived in Amsterdam from 1729 until his death, and was buried here in the English Reformed Church. And what we have here as well is what I think is one of the, if not the oldest buildings in Amsterdam. Because apparently, just like in London, there was a great fire here and all the wooden houses burned down. But this one survived. So that's another thing ticked off on my violin odyssey list, is the Locatelli statue, which I think was only put here in fairly recent years. I've not been here too long, I don't believe. And now we're going to jump on the train from Amsterdam Central to go to the beautiful city of Utrecht for one final little surprise on this violin odyssey. So we're just back at the Amsterdam Central train station to catch the train to Utrecht for our final stop on this Violin odyssey. A little surprise in store, something slightly unusual to end this odyssey with. And it cost about 20 euros. 20 euros for a day return to Utrecht. So just waiting a couple of minutes for the train to pull up, and we'll go over there and check out this final little surprise. So this is Utrecht, and we're about 10 minutes walk from the Spielklok Museum, where the self-playing instruments are. Just arriving at the Spielklok Museum. I hope it's open. There's a little surprise in there. So here in Utrecht is where my violin odyssey is going to end. And I've got to say that Spielklok Museum is absolutely worth it. It really is amazing. The absolutely amazing feats of engineering. And very pleasurable experience, that museum. Highly recommend it if you're in Holland. And it's not very far from Amsterdam. It's only about maybe 30 minutes on the train to Utrecht, on the Sprinter train or the Intercity train. And so, yeah, if you're in Holland, do come to the Spielklok Museum. I hope you enjoyed this video on the violin in Holland, and as you've probably appreciated. There's quite a few different things that you can search out and find to do with the violin when you're in Holland, and I'm sure there's probably a lot more as well that I haven't heard about yet. So almost at the end of this trip. We've got one more day tomorrow, and tomorrow we'll be checking out the Van Gogh Museum. But for now, for this video, I'm going to sign off and say thank you for watching, and take care. Bye for now.